A Pokemon Draft League is a variant of competitive Pokemon played on both cartridge and the Pokemon Showdown Battle Simulator. In this format, a handful of competitors, known as coaches, take turns drafting 8 to 12 Pokemon to their team and then battle week by week until one team is crowned the champion. If you're watching this video and have been subscribed to the channel, you already knew this. What you might not have realized is that I've been playing this format for 8 years, both on and off YouTube. I've gotten my fair share of wins and losses, both in and out of playoffs. I've even made it to the finals a couple of times, but I've never won the championship. That is, until now. Hello, my name is Snowy Kurama. I am the coach of the Chicago White Sox, and this is how I won my very first draft league. The league I'm about to cover is the Amoonguss Premier League, or APL. In their second season, they hosted an Ubers Draft League, which is a format I've been interested to try. In this league, we had 16 coaches with both old friends and new acquaintances. Each coach was allowed 140 points to draft 10 to 12 Pokemon, to include 2 Terra Captains. The team I drafted consists of Rayquaza, Iron Treads, Primarina, Terra Arcanine, Terra Sinistra, Roaring Moon, Araquanid, Overquill, Galarian Zapdos, Registeel, and Haunter. I have a feeling this video will be long enough, so I'll skip the draft breakdown and get right into the matches. Week 1 is versus Black Rhino and their Buffalent Bills. Against their Trick Room team, the main goal is to trap Calyrex Ice with Araquanid and go from there. I start the game with my Galarian Zapdos into their Calyrex Ice. I thought to myself, this is it, as I click U-turn to bring in Araquanid. Calyrex goes for Trick Room, which is the best case scenario. I'm able to trap them with Infestation as they get unlucky with a Zen Headbutt miss. Next turn, I click Power Split, which averages the offensive stats between both Pokemon. Leech Life behind a 118 attack stat is able to secure the KO and regain some of the health loss during the process. Oh yeah, it's Araquanid time. My Water Spider is able to deal significant damage to Black Rhino's whole team until they send out Thundurus. Here's where I make a mistake and withdraw my overpowered Pokemon and send in Iron Treads. They call the switch and Treads takes a massive Focus Blast. The next one misses, but my Ice Spinner isn't enough to knock out the Genie. Clefable comes in to finish me off, but not without using its Babiri Berry. Overquill comes in next to threaten with Gunk Shot, but I go for Liquidation to predict the Cobalion. Zapdos comes in on a resisted Aura Sphere to take it out with a Brave Bird. I figure now is the time for Araquanid to go down to Skeledirge. I was able to get in some good damage and a defense drop before that happened. Since Dirge is now a Fairy type and Cobalion is gone, I can safely get Overquill in and go for that Gunk Shot. Clefable takes that hit, so Thundurus can come back in. I took a strong Thunderbolt, but it wasn't strong enough for the knockout. I go for the guaranteed Toxic rather than risk a Gunk Shot miss. Skeledirge is able to take down Overquill and Zapdos before Rayquaza takes it out with an Iron Head. Week 2 is Zombie and their Texas Toxapex. My main objective for this game is watch Terranormal Arcanine blitz as many Mons as it can and get the Destiny Bond off with Haunter. I start with the tried and true lead Gyarados into Tinglu. Close combat has a chance to secure the knockout, so I go Primarina to predict the Mewtwo. Corviknight ends up switching in, so I'm out into Registeel. I try to set up on the Tinglu, but it whirlwinds it out to Haunter. I take this opportunity to put it on a timer with Toxic. Primarina comes in on a Corviknight switch, which ends up pivoting to Mewtwo. I get up a substitute, but it's not enough to handle the Psychic type. Haunter comes in to hit a strong Shadow Ball for the knockout. It's knocked out by Bolt, but not before getting off some chip. It's Registeel versus Corviknight now, and I click Iron Defense on the U-turn into Tinglu. A boosted Body Press isn't enough, but the extreme speed on the next turn is. It's time for Arcanine to do its thing. It pops one Dragon type after a Curse, and does some major damage to the other one before it goes down. I'm not sure if the lower defense from Scale Shot secured the knockout with Body Press, but it definitely didn't hurt. With Sylveon having the option to Terrastallize into a Fire type, I decided to keep up the pressure with Body Press instead of clicking Heavy Slam. Registeel might have lost the 1v1, but Zapdos is able to take Sylveon down with a close combat. Another one chips down the Corviknight so Rayquaza can come in freely to win the battle with Fire Blast. Week 3 is against Exy and their Los Angeles Registeels. I don't play Ubers often, or more accurately, ever, so finding a path through Lugia and Dialga will be tough. If the lead ain't broke, don't fix it. I thought about clicking U-turn, but then I thought, what if I just punch this thing in the face? Yeah, I definitely should have clicked U-turn. Overquill comes in to tank a Psychic attack, but ends up tanking an Aeroblast instead. After a failed Toxic, I figured the Ice Beam was the only move Dialga had for Overquill, so I'll go out to AV Treads just to take an extremely strong Earth Power. Roaring Moon comes in to finish the Dialga, but Suicune switches in quite freely. Overquill comes in on the Suicune, and I don't fall for the Poison Immune Dialga switch a second time. Another Crunch is able to take down the Master of Time, but a nasty crit from Terra Blast annihilates my Overquill. Registeel comes in to set up rocks for Lugia, but that doesn't work very well when it ends up switching in beforehand. I go to Zapdos for the sack, and they end up clicking Calm Mind. I can't afford to set up with Roaring Moon, so it has to take a boosted Aeroblast after attempting to kill with Crunch. After some pivoting around, it ends up being Registeel versus Terra Ogerpon Wellspring. I win the 1v1 against Ogerpon, but Registeel is more than weak enough for Raiko's Thunderbolt. Araquanid comes in and takes down Raikou with Mirror Coat. Porygon 2 comes in and unfortunately cleans up my remaining Pokemon with Bolt Beam. Week 4 is against Swift and their Sandy Isle Hippowdons. This match has me scared of Kyurem White, so my usual lead is swapped in favor of Araquanid. Freeze Dry takes me down to 67% after my Citrus Berry, and I'm able to KO back with Mirror Coat. Threat neutralized. Flutter Mane comes in next, and I swap Iron Treads into a crit Shadow Ball. My poor Iron Treads always has to tank critical hits. They swap Blastoise into a knockoff, and then I'm able to get in one of the greatest Terra Captains I've ever used, Sinistcha. It's always a Pokemon I forget about during the draft, but I'm not likely to forget about it after this. Calm Mind Terra Fairy is able to take down a Metagross after tanking a strong Meteor Mash, Blastoise, Blaziken thanks to Heat Proof, and misses out against Flutter Mane thanks to its Focus Sash. Zapdos is able to come in and click Brave Bird twice for the win. Week 5 is against Craze and their Melbourne Menses. I go from fighting Kyurem White to Kyurem Black. Our usual start is back on the field against a Greninja. It's Scarfed, so their U-turn brings in Gallade, who takes my U-turn into Primarina. Slowking comes in to eat up a Liquid Hyper Voice, so I flip turn out to my Dark-type Overquill. Slowking ends up pivoting out to Glamora, who gets a crit with Power Gem. Liquidation is strong into the opponent, but an Earth Power takes Overquill down. Iron Treads comes in and Craze sends in Slowking. I send in Primarina, and Glamora comes back. I go out into Treads, but unfortunately I'm predicted and take an Earth Power instead of a super effective Poison move. Slowking comes in next, and I hit it with an Earthquake. Ogerpon takes its place, so I figured it would be the best time to go into Flashfire Arcanine to take the Ivy Cudgel. I forgot about Mold Breaker, but it doesn't do too much anyway. I set up my first Curse on the Glamora switch, and then Terra Normal to take the Earth Power coming in. I go for Morning Sun here, but I think I should have clicked Curse again. I fix that mistake and then take down Glamora with Extreme Speed. Kyurem comes in and puts a stop to Terra Normal E-Speed, but it's chipped down enough for Roaring Moon to knock it out with Scale Shot. I go to Primarina to predict an Ice Beam, but they end up U-turning out into Slowking. Moonblast chips it down before the pivot into Gallade, who ends up being Terra Steel. I flip turn into Treads, who can outspeed and KO with a now super effective Earthquake. Ogerpon is in, and I intend to sack off Treads since it's so low. It goes for a resisted Play Rough, however, so I'm able to chip it down with Earthquake before the next one takes me out. Zapdos KOs it with a Brave Bird. Greninja comes in and clicks U-turn, which allows me to knock out Slowking with a critical hit. Greninja then KOs with Ice Beam, and Primarina is able to win the game with Moonblast. Week 6 is against some random Minecrafter and his Utah Umbreons. His attempt to taunt me with the Pokemon he has in the 4th slot is noted. No Zapdos this week, so I start with my other flying type, Rayquaza. Chi-Yu led off, so I switched to Primarina as Minecrafter switches to Rhyperior. I click Flip Turn since there's no way Rhyperior stays in, and we end up with our green legendary Pokemon facing off. I lose my Yache Berry in exchange for a Dragon Dance. Chi-Yu comes into the nuke that is Dragon Ascent. Rhyperior comes in, and like the silly goose that I am, I hit it with an Earthquake to activate its weakness policy. Not only does it have an attack and special attack boost, but it goes for agility to boost its speed. At the time, I thought Rhyperior was going to outspeed and punch holes into my team. But looking back, 392 speed at most versus my 468. So Rhyperior goes down to the next Earthquake. Ninetales comes in and goes down to an Iron Head. Terra Ogerpon switches in, and I opt to switch into Iron Treads to bait Ivy Cudgel. Overquill comes in to capitalize, but he clicks Swords Dance instead. +1 Ivy Cudgel is nothing to my Overquill, and it secures the KO after 2 Barb Barrages. I use Pain Split anticipating a strong Earth Power from Landorus, but he opts to boost with Nasty Plot. He clicks Sludge Bomb, likely to predict the Sinistra, but I don't believe there's a real reason for me to switch here considering the resources I have available. Overquill goes down to the Earth Power, but not before doing some chip damage. Iron Treads knocks out the Lando with Ice Spinner, and chips Quaquaval with Earthquake. Now the Paldean Water Starter is in range from a Terranormal E-Speed from Arcanine for the win. The +4 to my differential is big here, as my wins before this was always by 1 or 2 Pokemon. Week 7 is against Club Shea Sharp and their Boise Blastoise. I lead off with Rayquaza into their Hisuian Samurott. I set up a Dragon Dance because I know I can live a Ceaseless Edge, but that Ceaseless Edge misses. Here's where I made a little oopsie, but it turned out to be the optimal play in the end. In my infinite wisdom, I slotted Dragon Dance right next to Dragon Ascent. I click what I thought was Dragon Ascent for the KO, but I accidentally clicked Dragon Dance again. A crit would be devastating here. The Ceaseless Edge ends up doing less than half. This time I click the right Dragon move for the knockout. Salamence comes in next, and I'm presented with a 50-50 here. If I click Dragon Ascent and he terastallizes into a Steel type, then I won't KO and I lose my Rayquaza. If I click Earthquake and he doesn't terastallize, then I won't even deal any chip damage before falling to the other dragon. I predict the Terra and click Earthquake, which ends up being the right call. Pecharunt is next and lives an Earthquake to nobody's surprise. They use Parting Shot to switch to a Lowland Dugtrio. I bring it down to its Focus Sash as it sets up Stealth Rocks. For some reason. Pecharunt comes in and goes down to an Earthquake. Zacian falls to a Dragon Ascent, Goodra to an Earthquake, and Dugtrio to an E-Speed. A +6 diff at this point not only brought me to 3rd place overall, but Rayquaza skyrocketed to 3rd kill leader as well. While I felt a little bad for 6-0ing Club Shea Sharp here, it was nice payback for making me fight an annoying Licky Licky in CTHBL, so I figured it evens out. The final week of the main season is against Alazin and their Tonka Tepig. Yet another Uber that I don't know how to prepare for in Zekrom. I lead off with Araquanid to set up webs while I send out Heatran. Heatran is replaced with Zekrom, which threatens with a strong Bolt Strike. I go to Registeel to tank, but it ends up going for Dragon Tail to bring Araquanid right back in. Treads comes in on Stealth Rocks, and then Alazin goes into Iron Jugulus on my Rapid Spin. I go for a strong Ice Spinner, but it's not enough to take down the other Paradox. My next Ice Spinner hits the incoming Mimikyu, which phases me into Araquanid thanks to its held red card. Zekrom comes in and takes nothing from my liquidation. They switch into Hawlucha as I go into Iron Treads, who immediately switches into Sinistra. They go for Terra Ghost and set up a substitute. Fearing a Terra Blast, I go for Terra Poison and hit a Shadow Ball to break the sub. They go into Toad's Cruel and tanks the next Shadow Ball very well. I go to Gyarados on a predicted Earth Power, but they hit a Spore instead, rendering my bird useless. I decide to burn the initial turn of sleep on a Heatran switch-in. I go into Araquanid as they opt for Zekrom. Since he hasn't used Bolt Strike yet, I figured it's a full support yet and decide to stay in for Power Swap. That's when the Bolt Strike is revealed, and I'm hit down to 33% after my Citrus Berry. Iron Treads comes in on the Stealth Rocks, and I spin them away before being Dragon-tailed out into Sinistcha. I get as much chip as I can with +1 Shadow Ball before getting phased into Araquanid. Since it's as good as gone at this point, I stay in and knock out Jugulis on the switch. Heatran comes in and misses Magma Storm, which lets me hit it down to 21% and pop its air balloon. The next Magma Storm hits, and then I bring in Sinistcha. Heatran hits a taunt, which sucks for boosting, but I hit it to a pesky 1%. Toedscruel comes in on the next Shadow Ball. I go into Treads on an Earth Power, forgetting that my Assault Vest was knocked out. Great job, me! At least it lets me bring in Rayquaza and get off a Dragon Dance. My Haban Berry is knocked off, but I don't think it would make much of a difference here. Heatran switches in on a Dragon Ascent, and then Hawlucha comes in. Because it's no longer a flying type, it loses its speed from the webs. But its held White Herb activates and resets its stats, which in turn activates Unburden. One might say that it's not good for me. Hawlucha is able to pick off Rayquaza with Acrobatics, and then it's out to Sinistcha once again. Acrobatics does about a third, but I'm back to full thanks to Strength Sap. Toedscruel comes in on a Calm Mind, and then gets rid of my webs as I get a Machagacha off. Earth Power hits for another third, but I heal back to full again, expecting a switch. I figure I could get another Calm Mind in after that Earth Power damage. That lets Machagacha KO the Toedscruel. Mimikyu goes down to a Shadow Ball, and then Big Bad Zekrom shows its face once again. I switch to Zapdos anticipating a Dragon Tail, but it goes for a strong, critical Bolt Strike. Registeel comes in next and gets phased into Sinistcha. Bolt Strike misses this time, and it gets some HP back with Strength Sap. I am phased into Registeel again, and I'm able to get some chip on Hawlucha with Earthquake. I set up a Curse on their sub, which again is very bad for me. I take care of the sub with EQ, but the bird Pokemon is already +2 attack. Close Combat knocks me out, and then Acrobatics pops my remaining Pokemon down to 3%. I knock it out with a Shadow Ball, but against a relatively healthy Zekrom, the game is over. I've been guaranteed for playoffs for a couple of weeks at this point, but this loss brought me down from 2nd place to 5th place. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but it is very annoying. Our numbers are cut in half as we enter the playoffs. We had 16 coaches fighting to get their teams to this point. Some were knocked down early and couldn't recover, while others couldn't quite beat out their competition for the final few spots. My placement for playoffs is usually around the bottom half, so this is business as usual. I say my goodbyes to the bottom 8 as we ascend to the next phase. As I start preparing for my quarter-final match against the Fighting Dratini, I receive a ping on Discord. In a turn of events, it turns out the APL drafts the quarter-final matches instead of the usual 1st versus 8th, 2 versus 7th, etc. I was drafted into fighting Exy and their Los Angeles Registeels, who is one of the 2 teams I lost against in the main season. It was clear that they figured I had the weakest matchup into their team, but after the amazing season I've had so far, I had no intention of handing over an easy win. The match starts out with Galarian Zapdos versus Dialga. I once again decide to punch the Dialga right in the jaw, and they once again switch into Lugia. Shout out to Pivot for getting a good night's rest in the chat. I try to recover by going into Araquanid, which was tailor-made for this Pokemon. The Assault Vest allows Araquanid to take little damage going into the next turn. I expected another Aeroblast, so I go for Mirror Coat, but that doesn't do much for their Calm Mind. That's going to cause me some trouble. I go for Liquidations to try to get the defense drop, but it's not coming. I try Mirror Coat too on the off chance that I'm hit with an Aeroblast, but the CMs keep getting stacked. Ultimately, Araquanid goes down to a +3 Aeroblast. Overquill is out next to try for the defense drop with Crunch, but it goes down to an Earth Power instead. I send out Roaring Moon next, and I know that I can't afford to set up a Dragon Dance at this stage, so I click Knock Off to get it to 10%. Aeroblast is not enough to take Roaring Moon down, and the late Guardian goes down to the next knockoff. In comes Ursaluna Blood Moon, who reveals Vacuum Wave for the knockout. Primarina comes in to threaten with a super effective Surf. They switch to Dialga on Primarina Sing, and it hits. I was hoping for a speed boost with Blunder Policy, but I'll take the sleep. Dialga switches into Porygon 2, and I take this opportunity to click Calm Mind. Moonblast isn't even doing half, but neither is P2's Thunderbolt. 2 more Moonblast takes down the Porygon 2, and Primarina is left at a quarter. Incineroar comes in next, just to go down to a Torrent boosted Surf. Suicune comes in and clicks Scald on my Calm Mind. They fish for the burn again, but Primarina is able to take down Suicune with 2 +2 Moonblasts. Dialga comes in, stays asleep, and goes down to 2 more Moonblasts. Finally, it's Ursaluna versus Primarina. Ursaluna goes for a Vacuum Wave, but Primarina survives on 3% and wins the battle with Surf. Things looked awful in the start, but with some nice plays, a little bit of luck, and the best Alolan starter, I'm able to pull through. Going into the semifinals, our Elite 8 teams were cut down to the Final 4. I take a look who has made it further up the mountain. KJ and his Obsidian Poison, Broccoli and their Fighting Dratini, and 9 and their Sin City Sneaslers. Wait, the Sneaslers? What happened to Tylord? In the quarterfinal match against 9, he terastallizes his Hisuian Arcanine to take neutral damage from Earthquake, but ended up taking a super effective Brave Bird. It was an unfortunate read that cost him the game. Out of everyone that I build with in this league, I was the only one left. The pressure is building. It's a little harder to breathe up here, but it's nothing I haven't handled before. This is just as far as I get. But with my brothers in draft nowhere to be seen, I know they believe in me. I have to give it my all, if not for myself, then for them. The semi-final match is against KJ and his Obsidian Poison. I haven't played him before, but in the LBL, he's a whole division above me, so that doesn't bode well. Sometimes to climb higher than you ever have against opponents stronger than you faced, you need some help. With help from Tylord, may he rest in peace, I have a pretty strong game plan into KJ's absurdly strong team. I start off with my defensive Overquill because it leads pretty good into this team, and out comes Alomomola. I've played against Alomomola too many times recently, and I've got to say, I hate this fish so much. I figured he'd flip turn, so I go for spikes on the Zamazenta pivot. Sinistcha comes in next to take a body press, and he opts for Iron Defense. This doggo is now at +3 defense, but that means nothing to my ghost type. Rotom comes out on my Machagacha, which I click to gain back HP from an attack from Zama, and hope for the burn. I go to Iron Treads on a Volt Switch, and it ends up working out on Rotom's Discharge. I have Stone Edge for this Mon, but I end up missing it on the Alomomola switch. I go for knockoff for some damage, and more importantly, information. Rocky Helmet is gone, and the fish seems to be physically defensive. He flip turns into Cousin Donphan, which can get rid of the spike I have in the field. I successfully spin block with Sinistcha, which would have also covered an Earthquake. I figured there'd be a switch here, so I go for Calm Mind as Rotom comes in. My Sinistcha is heat-proof, so it can take an overheat no problem. What might be an issue is KJ set up with a nasty plot. It will neutralize the debuff on overheat, but I responded with another Calm Mind. I go for Hex on the 2-hit KO, but he goes for another nasty plot. This Rotom is getting spicy. A +4 overheat gets me down to 26%, but I'm able to knock it out with Hex afterwards. Scary Microwave is out of the way, and Scary Dragon comes in to take its place. I go Overquill and it takes a Shadow Ball without issue. I go to Primarina on the potential Draco Meteor, and he goes out to Donphan. Sinistcha is way too weak to risk an Ice Spinner, so I opt to get damage off with Surf. KJ goes to Aloe, so my spikes are still around for now. He flip turns into Zamazenta, which gives me the opportunity to boost with Calm Mind. I go for Encore thinking he'll boost with Iron Defense, but it turns out I take a nasty hit from Wild Charge. This allows me to go to Sinistcha, which will take one easily, but Pink Fish comes out instead. I hit it with a strong Machagacha since I know he'll flip turn, and now I'm over half against Dragapult. I go for Terra Dark like I could have last time, and take piss poor damage from the Shadow Ball. Dragapult is hit with a strong Hex in response, and ends up living on 3%. Pult gets KO'd by another Hex, so I decide to hit Strength Sap to keep Sinistcha healthy. What surprises me is he goes to Zamazenta, which brings it all the way to full. This thing is going to live forever. Rayquaza comes in on either setup or body press quite well, and sees a knockout with Overheat. I go for it, and out goes to Shield Dog. Garganacl comes out next, and since I'm Scarfed, I cannot stay in. I go out to Overquill to get the attack drop, and he gets that stat right back with a Terra Fairy Curse. I attempt to taunt it to avoid the boosts, but I end up taunting the Donphan instead. At this point, I can't do too much about my spikes getting spinned, so I'll go to Rayquaza just in case he tries to Earthquake. I go for Overheat again to get the most damage on Dawn, but he opts to let Garg take the chip instead. I go for Overquill here since it's not doing a whole lot at this point, and it takes a critical hit Salt Cure. I go for Taunt to set up a recovery, and take a weak but super effective Earthquake. This Salt Cure damage is going to rack up, but I figure a Poison would rack up on him too, so I go for Gunk Shot. He switches to Donphan, likely for stronger Earthquakes, and gets the Poison for my attack instead. I go to Iron Tread since it's not doing too much either, and he calls the switch with an Ice Spinner. I click Earthquake since it's the strongest move I have, and out comes Alomomola to take it. Aloe protects on the first EQ, but goes down to the second one. This allows Pult to come in freely and knock out Treads with a Draco Meteor. Primarina doesn't care about dragon moves, so I send it out to Surf, which ends up hitting Donphan. Dragapult comes in to U-turn into Garganacl, which takes Surf again. I decide to keep firing away since neither of the remaining Pokemon can really touch the Alolan starter Pokemon. I try to Encore it into Recover to get some boosts, but Dragapult comes out instead. Primarina takes a Shadow Ball handily and fires back with a Surf, which is now boosted by Torrent. Garganacl is the only Pokemon left. It's able to take out Primarina, but cannot stand up to Rayquaza's Overheat. I've done it. The Chicago White Sox moves into the finals. My win against Obsidian Poison takes me further up the mountain. I find myself eager to know who I'll battle for this season's crown. But is it eagerness or anxiety? At this point, I can't tell. Maybe it's both? I hear footsteps approaching. The final boss for the Scarlet Division is 9, coach of the Sin City Sneaslers, the one who beat out Tylord. If I can just win this one battle, I not only claim the championship, but I get revenge for my friend. I turn to my building bros for this one. It's time to lock in. Alright, forgot the matchup. Here it is. I lead with Hazard's Overquill once again as 9 sends in Ho-Oh. This strong, bulky bird that can regenerate its health on the switch is definitely the most annoying and dangerous Pokemon on their team. I take a nerfed Sacred Fire and fail to get the poison with Gunk Shot. Excadrill comes in on my switch to Arcanine, who would have taken the Sacred Fire better. 9 switches in Dondozo on a fire move. I went for close combat just in case, which ends up doing very little. I have to switch since my defenses are down against a water type, and I opt for Primarina, who is tempted to take a nap. Sleep is not what I need right now, so I go to Sinistcha on their Archaludon switch. I'm fairly sure this thing can't touch me, so I go for a Calm Mind. Ho-Oh switches in to threaten with Brave Bird, and I take the opportunity to Terra Water to do as much with Scald as I can. I knew a switch would come, so I click Calm Mind, and out comes Archaludon. It hits me with a body press, and I hit back with a Hex, which didn't seem to do too much even at +2. I go to Primarina on a potential Draco Meteor, but it just takes another body press. I go for Calm Mind on the switch since I was very sure they didn't bring Thunderbolt. Out comes Dondozo, who is unaware and likely wants Prim to take a little siesta. I go for Moonblast anyway to get as much damage as I can. Time to switch into Sinistcha for the grass move, but it's greeted by Archaludon instead. I figured there wasn't an electric move on it since it didn't go for one earlier, right? Wrong. I go down to 14%, and what do? Click Calm Mind. This is not good for my little teacup, which has become one of my most valued members of the team. I figure this match is going to require sacrifices, and the first of which has to be Sinistcha. I then go to Banded Arcanine to try to knock Archaludon out with close combat, but it ends up running into Ho-Oh. I go to Overquill and activate Intimidate on its recover turn. I double back into Arcanine to lower its attack even more, and get blessed by a Sacred Fire miss. Primarina comes in next to predict the Dondozo, and out it comes. I go for a Moonblast again, which is the best attack I have for it, and Primarina delivers a critical hit to 9. Prim gets sleepy once again. I don't really know what to do at this point, so I'll go to Rayquaza on a Ho-Oh switch. Even though a Sacred Fire burn would neutralize my Uber, I figure I need to make progress somehow, and click Dragon Dance. Brave Bird hits me down to 46%, but I'm now free to Rock Slide this bird. Unfortunately, Dondozo comes out to take it on 3%, but it goes down to Earthquake next turn. Archaludon comes out next. I'm not sure what the game plan is since it goes down to an Earthquake, but that's exactly what happens. Sneasler comes in next and goes for Endure. Endure is absolutely wild because it lives on 1% no matter what, which activates any held berry along with Unburden. A critical hit with Dragon Ascent reveals the berry to be Lychee, which raises Sneasler's attack stat. My Arcanine switch lowers their attack stat back down while taking an itemless Acrobatics. Without thinking, I go for Extreme Speed to pick it off, but 9 is a smart individual and goes into Ho-Oh. Overquill comes out to lower Ho-Oh's attack, so Brave Bird does nothing. Overquill can live anything Ho-Oh goes for, so I decide to secure the knockout on Sneasler by setting up spikes. Excadrill comes in, which could totally get rid of the spikes, but you know, it's whatever, I don't even care. I decide to go for Crunch to at least get off some chip and potentially a defense drop, but they end up clicking Earthquake. The Shuka Berry keeps Overquill around, and a Crunch activates Red Card. Excadrill's item brings in Roaring Moon, which is arguably the worst possible mon to have come in. Moon's booster goes off to raise speed. I see the line, and I go for it. Ho-Oh comes in on a Dragon Dance, which is needed to KO the remaining Pokemon. Rock Slide gets Ho-Oh, Knockoff gets Excadrill, another Knockoff gets Latios, and Overquill's Spike finishes Sneasler. I cannot believe my eyes. After all the times I missed out on securing playoffs, losing in the quarters, luck running out in the semis, fumbling in the finals, I finally won my very first draft league. All of those games flashed before my eyes, or at least the ones I could remember. Each and every one of them got me to this point. That's not all though. I've had quite a bit of help along the way. A special shout out goes to Veniscanex, Bart, and Tylord for suggesting mons, running mocks, and believing in me. I couldn't have reached this milestone without you. Alright, as you can tell by the length of this video, we're not done yet. You see, I have one more opponent to face before we're truly done. APL has 2 divisions. I am the current champion of the Scarlet Division, so there must be a champion of the Violet Division. Enter Bugzio and their Dragons of Dojima. This coach took their 8th place team into the playoffs and won it all. I don't think I knew that before making this video. It's pretty impressive. Damn. Anyway, I'm fighting Bugzio for the Grand Championship. If I win, neat. If I don't, I still won my division, and that's enough for me. Let's get into the Grand Finals. I wasn't sure what to do from the start, so when in doubt, start with the fast U-turner. Bugzio does the same thing, and that's how I know Cinderace is also scarfed. I get a nasty crit with my U-turn, and go right into Registeel. This Registeel is able to take on a Tera Fire Sylveon, and I figure their Tera Ground is more or less the same. Tera Blast doesn't even take Registeel down to half, and I use this turn to set up an Iron Defense. The next Tera Blast knocks me down to 21%, but thanks to the chip damage from Zapdos, I'm able to KO back with a boosted Body Press. Ursaluna Blood Moon hits the field, and I go to Zapdos on the Earth Power. The Vikavolt comes in on my close combat, and is able to shrug it off no problem. I go out to Trez to take an electric move, and they go for webs instead. I spin them away as Ursaluna comes back in. Ursaluna's ability allows it to hit ghost types, so I can't go out to Sinistra here. My best option is to sack Registeel, but it lives at 4%. I figure Vacuum Wave is coming, so I stay in and click Body Press. Cinderace comes out instead, so I'm able to get some nice chip before it Pyro Balls for lethal. I figure now is the best time to start poking holes in the team with Tera Fire, Choice Band, Arcanine. Bisharp switches into a lethal Tera boosted Flare Blitz. Ursaluna comes in next, takes 71 for the next Flare Blitz, and knocks me out with the Blood Moon. I go into Sinistra next to KO with Machagacha, but Kieran Black comes in and doesn't get burned. That's pretty rude. Dragon Dance raises their stats, but I incorrectly predicted the Ice move and went for Strength Sap. Primarina comes in to take the Icicle Spear this time. A super effective Fusion Bolt hits next, but Primarina lives with its Walk-On Berry, and hits the Kieran with a strong Moon Blast. Prim is knocked out on the next turn, and I bring in Zapdos. I go for knockoff in case there was a switch, but Kieran going down is just as good. Vikavolt comes in next, and I go to Treads on a Bug Buzz. Ursaluna comes in and loses its leftovers thanks to another knockoff. I don't fear the Vacuum Wave this time and knock out the Big Bear with a big Earthquake. Cinderace comes in and I feel more than comfortable sacking Treads to the incoming Pyro Ball. Sinistra hits the field next. Thanks to Heatproof, I don't fear a Pyro Ball, so I click Calm Mind on the Vikavolt switching in. I don't believe the bug can do much to me and I set up again just to be Thunder Waved. Bug Buzz does very little chip and I break through the Para for a knockout. As long as I can break through Para again, this game is in the bag. Cinderace comes in and Pyro Balls me to below half. I break through the Para for the Shadow Ball, and KO, winning this season's Chicago White Sox the Grand Championship. Let's go! Thank you so much for watching if you got this far. I haven't really done scripted, long-form-ish content before, so I'm hoping that I did it right. I'm hoping that you guys enjoyed it, and if you have any notes for the next type of video like this, please leave them in the comments below. I am more than willing to learn from mistakes and, continue to get better at this. I want to give another big shout out to everyone who helps me build, specifically Veniscanex, Bart, and Tylord. I mentioned them earlier, but, special thank yous. I can't give enough to them. It's very, very big winning the first championship of my Draft League career. Hopefully it's not the last one. We'll have to see. This league took place a long time ago. It's been, I don't know, it's taken a while to get this video together, but again, I haven't done content like this before. I had to take all of June off for some forced hiatus. Hopefully by the time this video comes up, I will be in another league, probably recording it. Who really knows? So yeah, that's been the video. Keep a lookout for my Nuzlocke video that I'm going to be making, and also keep a lookout for my streams. As far as this video goes, I am still streaming Pokemon Crystal Legacy, which is an updated take on Pokemon Crystal. It's been very fun. We have avatars, stream avatars. It's a good time. And I think I'm done talking your off, so, like this video if you have not already. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so and you like this content. Only if you want to, of course. I'm trying to get 200 subs by the end of the year, and with your help, I can get there. Hit that bell so you know what it is I am uploading or streaming. And with all that being said and more, this has been your boy, Snowy Kurama. Have a good rest of your day, and be safe out there.